truth to power without fear. So, as many of you know, I'm a big fan of hip hop. I love hip hop. And I was really looking forward to this battle between KRS One and Big Daddy Kane. I'm big fans of both of those artists. You know, I have nothing but respect for those artists. They are legends in the game. You know, they set the groundwork for a lot of the rap that we see today. So shout out to them, much respect to them. Uh, so I'm just going to provide my assessment. I'm going to tell you what I thought about it. I'm going to tell you who I thought won. And I want to hear from you. I want to know, who do you think won that battle between KRS One and Big Daddy Kane? So the first thing I'll say is this, like, I can appreciate the fact that they were very respectful in their battle. You know, there was no disrespect. It was all about the art form, elevating hip hop, and just challenging each other based on skills, based on performance, based on lyricism, and all that. And I like the fact that they incorporated another key aspect of hip hop into their battle, and that was dancing. You know, they had some break dancing and all that kind of stuff, because many of us know that dancing is a huge part of hip hop. It's one of the elements of hip hop. You know, break dancing was huge when hip hop first took off, and I'm glad that they brought that aspect of the culture into this versus battle. That's something that has been missing from all these verses that I've seen. This is the first verses where you actually had people dancing. So that was great. Even Big Daddy Kane started to dance a little bit. And I think that that added to Daddy Kane's performance, you know, because that brother, as we know, people that are fans of his know that he would dance in some of his hip hop videos and all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that he brought that to the game. Even though he's older now, he still has some dancing moves and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to just tell you what I think about this. You know, first of all, I'm just going to say off the top, I think that overall KRS One did win this battle. But I'm not going to say it was like an open and closed type of battle, or that he slaughtered Big Daddy Kane or anything like that. It was a great battle, and I think that they were a great matchup, even though there are others that they could have gone against, and those battles may have been a little bit more entertaining. For instance, you know, I would have liked to see Big Daddy Kane going against Rakim. You know, I think that that would have been, you know, awesome, you know, because they both have a similar laid back, smooth type of style. So that would have been an interesting battle. And as you know, somebody was telling me, you know, another interesting battle would have been Busta Rhymes against KRS One. That would have been really interesting. So there's so many different matchups that would have happened, that could have happened. But I think that overall, KRS One did win this battle. And the reason why I will say that is because he has a bigger catalog than Big Daddy Kane. He has more songs that are more popular to the masses of people that are into hip hop. And because of that, you know, I just think that he won the battle, because he has songs from the 80s, he has songs from the 90s, and he even has songs from the 2000s. So that gave him a competitive advantage over Big Daddy Kane. Also, you know, he had crowd participation with a lot of his songs. Like, for a lot of his songs, he was able to have the audience recite some of the lyrics from a lot of his key songs. But I think that one of the downfalls is that KRS One relied on audience participation a little bit too much in that battle. And the reason why I say that is because this crowd, as somebody was telling me or saying on Facebook, this crowd wasn't really that energized. It seemed like they were just low energy, so they weren't as hyped up as, you know, a typical KRS One concert, for instance. Like, when he's at his concerts, everybody there is all enthusiastic, and every other line that he says, they're reciting all his lyrics and all that kind of stuff. Even though you had people recite his lyrics and know his lyrics, it just didn't have the same amped up type of energy that you see during his concerts. So I think that that hurt him, because there were moments when he would be silent, expecting the crowd to say something, and the crowd was real low in their response to him. So I think that that kind of hurt him. And another thing is like KRS One, I think that his performance was on point and all that kind of stuff. He's a master performer and stuff like that. But one of the criticism that I have for him is like there were elements where it seemed like he was rhyming too fast. He was too hyped up, and he was losing a little bit of his breath control. Whereas Big Daddy Kane, every single song that he performed was on point. Like you could hear him clearly and loudly. He wasn't out of breath or anything like that. His lyrics weren't being rushed. They were in line with the song as we know them and all that kind of stuff. So I think that kind of balanced things out. So KRS One had even though he had a bigger and more extensive catalog with more bangers that hip hop heads recognize and feel, Big Daddy Kane had a great performance, and he had great stage presence as well. He was all smooth and fly and all that kind of stuff. And, that's another thing that made this thing, interesting, is that they had two completely different styles. Like a KRS One is far more animated than a Big Daddy Kane. Big Daddy Kane is laid back and chill, whereas KRS One is bringing all this energy to his performances and everything. And also KRS One had that regular grimy New York hip hop appearance or whatever. And Big Daddy Kane was on some smooth pimp player type stuff. And he's always been on that stuff, as we know. We know he's like a ladies' man. Like he had these album covers where he's surrounded by women and stuff. So we know that's a part of his style. That's a part of his flow and everything. So yeah, that's what helped make it a closer battle than it ordinarily would have been. Like it could have been a slaughter, but it was a closer battle than many people expected. But I still give the win to KRS One because one of the things that I appreciate about KRS One is the diversity in his music. Like he will talk about conscious stuff in one song. He will talk about street life in another song. He will talk about battling people and be on some petty, competitive beef type stuff. So he's the full gamut when it comes to this hip hop thing. So that's one thing that that gives him an edge, and it's one thing that I appreciate about KRS One, just like the diversity in his messaging and in his music and stuff. And he had these hits from the 80s and then 90s, like classic joints that, many of the hip hop heads recognized immediately. So again, that gave him an edge. And one thing I really like about this battle is that they added those elements of freestyling to the battle. So there were segments where they would just play a beat and they would do a freestyle rhyme. And I think that adds a freshness to the competition. Another thing that I really liked were the performances. Like you had, guest performances rather. So you had KRS One bring in people like Buckshot, brought in Das Effects, brought in, the brother from this, I can't remember his name, but he got that song, Spark Mad Ism, where it has a clip from Buckshot and stuff like that. All we do is Spark Mad Ism. Also, he brought Mad Lion on stage, so that gave him another advantage in this battle. Like he had stronger guest appearances in his performance. Big Daddy Kane brought out a couple of people. He brought out Nice and Smooth. He brought out Roxanne, Shante, and that was cool and that was great. And that brings me to another point. Like it's just so it's something else when artists like go at each other, like in front of each other, and have some hard hitting bars right in front of each other, just like that Gucci versus Yeezy battle. I mean, not Yeezy, Jeezy. That battle between Jeezy and Gucci, where Gucci was singing that song, The Truth, and he was just going all the way in, going all the way in right in front of Jeezy, man. It's just like, wow, man. So in this particular battle between KRS One and Big Daddy Kane, KRS One recited that famous line from The Bridge Is Over where he basically said, Roxanne Shante is only good for steady effing. And I'm not going to say the word, but you know what I'm saying. And then later on, she walked right out on the stage. So I'm like, he was dissing her right in front of her face. And, I like how Big Daddy Kane paid homage to the sister, recognized her legacy, recognized her contribution, and basically talked about how there wouldn't be no Big Daddy Kane and all these other artists if it wasn't for her. And one thing that really comes out is how she actually, like, not during this performance, but during like interviews and actually doing her biopic, that she actually had an influence on Nas. And many people recognize Nas as one of the greatest rappers of all times. So she had influence on him, she inspired him, gave him words of wisdom and all that kind of stuff. So she's a legend in the game, and I'm glad that the brother took out time to recognize her, especially as a woman MC, one of the first women MCs to bring attention to the game. So that's something that is really appreciated. And again, like, one thing that I like about this, like, it's just how you have these two brothers be able to compete with each other, when it comes to this hip hop thing, battle each other without all the ignorance, without all the violence, without all the disrespect and stuff. They were able to carry out a battle in a dignified and respectful kind of way. And they elevated the art form by doing that. And one thing that I'll say is this, like, ever since the battle between the Lox and Dipset, I think this whole Verzuz thing has gone to a new level. They really amped it up and raised the bar for Verzuz by basically compelling these artists to actually perform instead of doing lip syncing and all that kind of stuff, to actually know the lyrics to their own rhymes. So yeah, I mean, this was great. This was great for the culture, man. It was great for hip hop. And it was great seeing all those MCs from the 90s, man. Like, for me, that was the golden era of hip hop, like the 90s, when you had, when Gangstar was on the rise, when Nas first stepped on the scene. It was just like, at that time, New York rap was dominant. And that was, for me, like the best part of, best period for hip hop. You had groups like Das Effects, completely unique in their style and their approach to hip hop. And you have Buckshot. I mean, he's a great MC. And I'm really surprised that he's not mentioned like among the greatest to ever do it. I was surprised at the turn that, Black Moon took. Like, they had a couple of, after their first album, it's been hard for them to replicate that or to be consistent and regularly putting out, bangers like that first album. But yeah, so that's what I thought about it. Tell me what you think about it. Who do you think won that battle? Do you think Big Daddy Kane won, or do you think KRS One won the battle? Tell me why or why not. So with that, peace and blessings. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.